Yeah, so welcome. So we are doing today a quick AMA in regards to the Tokemak DAO and the TRU-1, so our first community vote that's been up on Snapshot. So we have asked for the community to provide a couple of questions via the Notion board, which we've collected. So I think our plan would be to go through these questions first, and then we'll see if there are any additional questions from the community. Also, feel free to add any questions that you might think of in the DAO Governance channel, and I'll have a look at these questions, and then we'll take these into account as well. Yeah, so today we're joined by Mike, who's our in-house counsel at Tokemak for legal. So I don't know if he wants to give a quick intro.
Yeah, hi, I'm Mike. I've been a practicing attorney for about 10 years in the U.S. Familiar with corporate securities and corporate governance, and background in biotech and public companies. So, been following Tokemak and known Carson and the team for a long time, and joined not quite a year ago as things launched off and started exploring DAO and governance. And happy to be chatting today and excited about the foundation formation that we're doing right now.
Awesome, thanks. So yeah, so I think we could start just by a question, because there's a lot of talking about DAOs and communities in crypto in general, and I think that a lot of people, and I think it's probably like a pretty loaded question, but like what a DAO actually is, so that we can kind of like level set about talking DAOs and the foundation, for example, in our case. Like.
Yeah, that question has been a subject of a lot of AMAs, articles, and everything. I think, for me, and I think generally, a DAO is an on-chain community that is looking to do some type of activity on a blockchain. We've seen social DAOs from like topical, the Constitution DAO wanting to buy a piece of, the Constitution. You have investment DAOs that are strictly voting on investments and doing investment activities, and we have more protocol-driven DAOs like Tokemak, where it goes beyond just voting. It's building out software, and you need devs and everything. So it's interesting to see the emergence of different models and research on DAOs and how they should be operated, and the separation of what a traditional corporation looks like and shareholders to what a token holder and a DAO looks like. So that's one of the difficulties I think with the DAOs is there's so much optionality, and it's hard to figure out what the right blend of governance and utility and on-chain versus off-chain activity. But yeah, at its core, it's we're trying to do things decentralized. It's a good move for the space. But what exactly a DAO, I think, is going to be an open question for a while. And I don't think there is kind of one definition of a DAO. It kind of depends on the purpose of what that group is doing.
Okay, awesome. And then as like people have, and I think this is a question that maybe many had, is as they've seen in the proposal, is that Tokemak, there will be like a foundation involved, which some people that are might be following more closely like these developments in terms of DAOs and stuff might have seen other protocols or projects using as well, such as Maker. And if you could go into a little bit, what a foundation is, what purpose does it serve, more generally speaking, and then also go into a little bit how this would be beneficial for Tokemak as a DAO, and which then naturally leads into the reasons for setting this up.
Yeah, so traditionally when people have talked about foundations for digital assets and cryptocurrencies and tokens, they've generally thought about either Swiss foundations or Cayman foundations, because those two jurisdictions recognize the ability to have a for-profit or non-profit entity that is for the development of a piece of software, and then you can have a governance of that entity. They're not necessarily shareholders, but they are operating in the benefit of that software and the token holders. So a lot of the early ones initially went to Switzerland. So if you think Cardano, Ethereum, they started in Switzerland. Usually there's a board of multiple directors, many of which that live in there, and they govern the protocol. One thing that came out of the Cayman Foundation is the ability to actually have more influence from the token holders and the DAO into that foundation. So as we explored these options, we looked at the maker model, which was a Cayman Foundation. We also looked at the Guernsey one, which people may recall was hot when actually Terra did their licensing deal for the National Stadium. They made a Guernsey trust for this reason, because they could do the sponsorship through this Guernsey trust, and it was specifically for the benefit of the protocol. So those were kind of the three jurisdictions that we really looked at closely. But like I mentioned, the Cayman one is I think somewhat unique because it allows more direct input from the token holders into the foundation, and then the foundation is run like a nonprofit where the director or directors are working for the benefit of the protocol, the blockchain, and the token holders, rather than, as a for-profit entity. I think one of the difficulties with DAOs now is where there's not a clear corporate entity behind it that is really disinterested. I think it's harder for that one to get more decentralized. So I think this is the right model for Tokemak to get to, hopefully, fully decentralized, where maybe the foundation isn't even really necessary from a governance standpoint, but it's definitely important for a impartial backing and a legal entity. And it's nice because if we want to do a contract with a central exchange for some reason, or we want to do a sports partnership, usually you have to have an entity behind that, and the best entity to do that is one that really represents the interests of everybody and isn't kind of an entity on the side that you're setting up or someone else has control of. Sorry, that was kind of a little answer.
Yeah, but so you would say, like, in short, like the really TLDR, and I might botch this a little bit, is that like a foundation offers the ability to have like kind of a legal entity that it's like kind of outward facing for the DAO, and the foundation being like kind of the best model that we've determined in order to like represent kind of to be the most beneficial to, like, so to speak, the DAO and by extension, like, the community, right?
Yeah, I think when you're looking to give token holders the ability to directly influence an entity, the foundation is the best model, because any other one, I think there's more discretion at the, whatever the board members are or the controllers of that entity, where the foundation is pretty clear in the purpose of it, that it's for the benefit of the protocol and the token holders, and that it's pretty strictly adhered to by the directors.
Oops, I think I might have muted myself accidentally.
Okay. Yeah.
No. So I think this leads over well into there was a question, since you were mentioning the DAO representatives, so like the board observers, and there was a question also like that was provided by the community in what are DAO representatives? So how should a user think about like these DAO representatives, or like these board directors versus the other?
Yeah, I think the closest analog to a DAO representative is a board observer. So the DAO representative for Tokemak is going to be able to attend board meetings, have access to the materials, and also just give input and have access to the director or directors of the foundation. So it's a non-voting at this point, and eventually the goal is to have the DAO actually insert the votes directly into the foundation to give direction. But right now, it's kind of the supervisor for the DAO is that DAO representative.
Oh, and and there was another question that was asking if there would be later on potentially the possibility to adding additional directors to the foundation, and if there would be a benefit, and at what point this would be a possibility for the DAO, for example, to like vote on it.
Yeah, this is an interesting question. I think it'll play out depending on how the governance, as the community gives input on the governance, because really when you look at the DAO and the foundation, they're both working together to kind of do the same thing. So I view them as kind of one ecosystem. So the more power you give to the foundation, the less power potentially you have at the DAO. So the more power you have at the DAO, the less power you may need at the foundation. So there is a potential that we could have people, that the community wants to be directors put on the board of the community, put on the board of the foundation. But there's also the possibility that the foundation kind of takes as little, power and action as necessary, and more input is put in by the DAO and the DAO governance vehicle. So both are possible, but there's, kind of a zero sum. It's you give one to what power to one entity, and it takes some power away from the other one. So I think that'll be something for the community to give input on where they think the decision making for something should be done.
Okay. Yeah, and then we had a couple of additional questions, which I think I can answer at least some of them, but like Mike, feel free to like jump in at any point. And for the first one, which was a question if we're gonna set up you know, a DAO forum, basically, because I personally think it's very important because it would allow for like more structured discussion than on Discord, which is often a lot scattered. The one that I saw mentioned was discourse.org, but I think we're going to use another one, right? Dan, that was in discussion. If Dan can speak at the moment.
Yes, I can speak if you guys can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it might have been Commonwealth that we were talking about. But I'm not sure if that was set in stone just yet. So I guess people are it's fine if people want to kind of make their case for an alternative that they prefer. If there's certain like pros and cons that they've felt from using it in the past.
Yeah, because I remember like we had one call in the governance channel, I think late last week, right, Dan, where I think Commonwealth came up quite a few times.
Yeah.
But as mentioned, if anyone has preferences for other forum types, you can just always hop into the channel and add color to those. They kind of aim into the same direction, right? The questions were like, will the team be formalizing the proposal discussions, the creation and voting process, or will this be done by the community? So the first couple of things, like for example, setting up like a formalized like a proposal discussion, creation, and the voting process. I think ultimately now in the beginning we've kind of done this already with the initial like vote that we had to set up, which is a little bit like kind of a hen and the egg problem. But I think these things are like ultimately like also like open for us to like to discuss to like alter, change, or adapt those via like the governance. And for the forum or like the way in which proposals should be set up, I think these are like kind of detailed questions that goes down to the kind of a template for like proposals, right? And what type of proposals initially will be up. And then also like in terms of like the structure of the DAO itself, like we started talking about this already like in the DAO channel. We had, like I mentioned last week, kind of like informal call where we're just like setting up like initial ideas, and I think voice channels are like a great way to do this. In addition to the forum itself, because I think it's oftentimes a much quicker way to like coordinate than in written form. So we're very much looking forward to like having the community like strongly engaged in this, because the evolution to like the full decentralization, it's very much like a team effort. And by team, I don't mean like the core team itself, but like the core team and the community together as a team. So yeah, very much looking forward to exploring this with the community. There was a question about like if we will be delineating the types of decisions that will be up for the DAO for like decision making via like proposals. For example, what aspects of the protocol will be expressively managed by the team versus by the community? Again, it's like a very good question, and I think this is ultimately also something that will be decided via governance. But I think at least initially it's important that the team has the ability to react to like situations that, for example, represent like a potential danger to the protocol, that they have the ability to like act swiftly, right? That being said, so you can expect that we will start implementing votes for like, things that pertain to the treasury that aren't like super critical in terms of like timing wise, that this will happen shortly. And also in the future, I think there's a lot of things in here that to discuss in terms of like governance, right? That, for example, there's a lot of models in terms of like thresholds for like decisions. We could, for example, set up multiple ways to vote. Like, you have the full vote of like a week, but for smaller, like under a certain threshold, maybe, it's like 48 hours only to vote, which would allow the DAO to be like a little more flexible or like move faster on certain things. Which leads into the next question, which is like the next steps for the DAO after TRU-1. I think there's a couple of things that might be able to answer, but I think these are like a little maybe too technical of like what exactly happens. But in terms of like the DAO itself, like what kind of like the community can take action on directly is once we have the forum up, that will continue and like start like really formalizing the structure of the DAO, and like also like just the communications and the planning of everything we're trying to build here. As mentioned before, we've had like great discussion already in the channel, and yeah, during this first call. Mike, once this should pass, is there a timeline that we could consider in terms of like when this would be set up, in terms of the foundation and everything?
You're talking purely the execution of TRU-1, or?
Yeah, purely the execution.
Yeah, that'll be set up in the next couple of days. We have all the paperwork ready to go, so we'll be able to, the one thing that'll happen that people will see on chain is the director will be added to the multi-sig, and then we're actually going to add one more person to the multi-sig, so it'll be 11 people on that. So that'll be the signal that people will see, and we'll probably do a Discord announcement as well, but that'll be done, shortly after the vote's done.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I just checked in the governance channel. There were no additional questions. There was like an idea regarding like an NFT, and which we'll be looking into. But
I just wanted to bring up one interesting point when you're talking about is I think one of the most important decisions that'll have to be made is the delegation. Some protocols do delegation, some protocols don't. Some people say it tunes people out that they delegate their votes and then they leave, and so it's not really community led. Some people like it because then there's more votes being used, and you can, still be active and have that representative, be voting for you. So I could see that as being, as the next few votes is kind of top down governance. What are the big pieces that the community is for, being, councils and delegation and how it's structured? Because one of the nice things that I think we have the opportunity to do here that isn't always done is sometimes the foundation is fully baked and the governance is fully baked internally. And that's just really set up by the core team. That's what they believe is best. Here, I think we have a chance to ask some of these questions like, delegation and how long votes should be and who should get to make the decision. And should there be a delegated team that can make faster decisions in certain scenarios? So I think there's a lot of interesting, governance questions that are going to be fleshed out, and it's going to be pretty interesting.
So let's see, are there any questions right now from the audience? Just raise your hand and then we'll get you up here. No, doesn't look like it. Yeah, I think it's for most people, me included, it's a lot to chew on. It's not the stuff that we usually have to do from this side, like from the day-to-day in crypto. So Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, thanks to the people that did show up. We do want people's input on DAO governance because, as I said, there's a million different ways to split it. It's not cookie cutter, and there's definitely some imperfections in current models. So I think the more input people have, the better we're going to have. So I just ask people be active in the community.
Yeah, totally agree. And I'm looking forward to to all this. And I'm really excited about the forum, by the way, because I have my issues with Discord. It's hard to keep track of, especially when you have discussions that need a little more structure. So I'm really looking forward to this. Okay, Dan, anything from your end?
Do you want to talk about the state of the reactor calls that we've got planned?
Oh yeah, so
coming up?
I might tease this a little bit. So we have talked with Dan and a couple of, and this was like something that came up a lot lately in the community. And I've talked to Dan a lot and the rest of the captains. And what we're going to do going forward is that I'm going to have a weekly call with the captains. So if you have anything that you have questions about, you can always approach the captains. Additionally to that, we will have the community call. We're just going to do a bi-weekly one and on a fixed like schedule, probably starting next week or this week, depending on how your week starts. Probably this will happen on Fridays, and we're just going to have a fixed schedule with these for every week to have like updates for the community. We're going to during those 2 weeks, always in between those calls, collect all the questions that are coming up that people are interested in, and then work through these on these days, which I said will likely be a Friday.
We'll also have a community Notion page that will keep track of all these upcoming calls. So instead of if you can't get a hold of a captain or me or End during the fortnight, we'll find a place to put this Notion board, and there'll be a page in there where you can go in and add topics or questions that you want us to cover in the next community call. And so, this is all part of our plan to kind of like bridge this information gap that we've had between the core team and the community at times. And I think we're really excited and appreciative of the feedback that we've had recently in Discord, because this kind of thing becomes even more important as we're talking about our journey to decentralization and opening up forums. And Mike's point on the more feedback that we get and the more input and discussion that happens around some of these governance decisions, the better, the more robust our systems will be going forward. You guys also still free to put your hands up if you have anything that you want to ask. Have we got through that? All those questions on that Discord page?
Yeah, the Notion one, and I'm just going to double check the DAO governance page. Yep, Reginald, but it was more a statement than a question, I think. So, thanks for that, Reginald. I've got, by the way, Reginald, I got all your questions that you have collected in that document, and I've worked through most of them. So you can expect answers very soon.
Yeah, I think the plan was to cover those in the first State of the Reactor call. And so I think just as a rough structure for these calls, I mean, this might change a little bit, but I think the idea was that, each fortnight we'll spend, 10 minutes or so going through protocol updates and recent events before getting to the community talking points for the fortnight. So these are things that myself, captains, commanders will compile from the community throughout the period. And then after that, we'll likely have an open floor section in case any of you guys want to come up on stage and ask us directly. But as always, these things can be changed to suit what you guys feel is most effective.
All right, I think we went through all the points we wanted to address. So I think we can stop the call here, but keep posting your questions in either the DAO Governance channel, other questions pertaining to more the state of the reactor. I'm keeping an eye on them, but I'm not the best at Discord, so I might be missing some. So Reginald, if you have some to add that you see popping up, just add them to the document. And I'll keep an eye on that as well. All right. Thank you all for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everyone. And thanks, Mike.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Bye.